Welcome back. Welcome back to the channel, and most importantly, to each a good day. Well, I got you zoomed in on the, well, not zoomed in, but I got you pointed down at the bench here. I'm going to do a little bit of work prior to bringing our next item out to our Project Charger Pursuit, otherwise known as our police car, our retired police car. And that is going to be to install a dedicated interface for use of our Diablo Trinity T2 tuner. Now, in a previous part of this project, in a previous video, I should say, we installed the unlocked ECU, and we wanted to put a little bit of runtime on that prior to doing any kind of modifications or tunes, just to make sure that the ECU itself was okay. If you remember, we opted to go ahead and purchase a replacement ECU rather than sending the one that we had, our original, in to be unlocked. So a little bit of time has passed on that, and we're not experiencing any issues with it, so I think we're safe to go ahead and start doing modifications to that, of which the first one you'll see us do here later is to disable the MDS system within that vehicle. And that's the cylinder multi-displacement system, I think is what they refer to it as. It's basically just it will cut the vehicle down from being a V, from running on 8 cylinders down to 4 cylinders when you're just cruising for fuel efficiency, and then as you need it, it'll reactivate that. Now, if you've watched the previous clips, you know that we're getting a circuit code for the cylinder 1 deactivation cylinder 1 deactivation solenoid is not working correctly. So by us disabling the MDS, which we were going to do anyway, whether we did it now or after we did the 6.4 liter engine swap, it was going to happen. But what you're looking at on the desk here is Diablo sent this with the unlocked ECU, and it's put up by PowerTech. It is their preferred method of a bypass cable. Now, this bypass cable, because we have a 2018 vehicle with a secure gateway, we just can't plug straight into the factory OBD port to be able to gain access to the PCM to write to it. So they give us a bypass cable. Now, there's myriads of other bypass cables. You've seen me use the Chrysler, actually got it right here, the 12+8 bypass cable. Which, if we look at this one, just to show it to you, so that's the 12+8 bypass cable. You've seen me use that, where you just unplug the secure gateway and plug this in and plug your scan tool or whatever tool you're using into that port there. There's also the Z Automotive double bypass, which we actually do have a double bypass plugged into the trunk at this point. But the reason why I'm looking at their cable is that this is their preferred method, the way that they want you to use their tool to make modifications and or flash the PCM. The way this would typically work, and this green connector is not used in our charger for our particular setup, so we're going to ignore that one. We're just going to tuck it off to the side. We only use this one, the white connector. And we would plug this into an available port on the star connector, the passenger side behind the glove box. We would then route this underneath the front dash and plug this end into the factory OBD2 port, and that would then come out to this, and we could plug our Trinity tuner into this at that point. What this is doing is that you'll see on this part that plugs into the factory connector, it's only plugging in 2 pins, and it's actually plugging in pin 16 and pin 4. So battery positive and ground, they're tapping from the factory connector, passing it through to this connector here. The only other 2 wires that we're going to use in this case are coming off our green connector here, and when I do a continuity check on this, it is pins, 3rd pin from the top, from the left-hand side or right-hand side in, also right-hand side in, 3rd pin on the bottom. And if we look our pin out, and I'll put a link in the description below to the website these are at, but they pretty nice website. Explains all kinds of things about the OBD2 port. It also breaks it down per manufacturer on kind of a typical layout they like to use these pins for. You'll see this is the Chrysler layout. Now this will look a little bit different if you got a secure gateway, but what we're looking here is that a lot of this is standardized. But we're looking at pins 6 and 14. So looks like their adapter, their bypass, is just accessing CAN high and CAN low, as well as battery power on pin 16 and chassis ground on pin 4. So we really just need 4 pins or 4 connections coming off of this bypass cable. Now we could use this bypass cable. There's nothing wrong with it. A lot of individuals have used it. This will definitely get the job done. However, I do utilize occasionally the actual Y-Tech2, and yeah, I know I could just unplug this and then plug the Y-Tech directly in the OEM port, OBD2 port, and I would still have access to the secure gateway, thus making the Y-Tech2 software happy. But what I figured was, rather than kind of futz with this about, you know, plugging it in and unplugging it and kind of working around it when I needed to, why don't we just install a dedicated OBD2 connector that we could use as a port, and it would always be there, always wired in the way we need it wired in. We would use it for our Trinity and other devices potentially, but we wouldn't have to plug or unplug this in or remove this if we needed to remove it, like to bring it in for service work, anything of that nature. And like I said, it kind of just gives us a dedicated port and makes ease of use just a little bit better. So since we have that nice big metal center console and plenty of room to work with, what I figured we would do is that we're going to utilize another one of these Z Automotive double bypass kits, because it comes out to this port here. So I needed just this port to do what we're going to do. I didn't need an interface that would then plug into the factory one, because again, when they plug in the factory, they're only routing battery power and a chassis ground. Easy enough done. These double bypass kits are nice because there's our battery positive and chassis ground connections that we can make right there. And again, per their instructions, we're not worried about the green connector. We just need the white connector, which again comes out to pins 6 and 14 on this connector. Well, this Z Automotive, the color coding is exactly the same as far as the connector. The green one here, we're not going to use. The white one comes out to also pins 6 and 14 of this connector. So we're going to utilize this kit to wire us up a dedicated plug, this OBD2 plug here, that we'll kind of stash inside the center console, and then when we need it, it's there. We can pull it out, plug into it, do what we need to do, unplug, and we're done. And that way we're not futzing with having to plug this in or remove this from the OEM interface, so on and so forth. I'm going to show that to you again. And again, I will have a link in the description to the website for this. And they also do a really nice job of kind of giving you a breakdown of each one of those pins as well, because again, you can see pin 6 is CAN high, pin 14 CAN low. That's what we're going to be utilizing. And then for our explicit needs, what we're going to be doing here, we're not going to be using this. Now Chrysler does use this other connector that you see here, and it actually comes out to pins 2 and 10. And if you look at this description here, pin 2 is an SAE J1 850 VPW bus plus at 10.4 kilobits per second. And then pin, was it pin 10? Yeah, pin 10 looks like it's unused or unknown. Again, there's just Chrysler specific pins in this case, but again, not needed for what we need to do here in order to access just our PCM. So we're going to utilize a length of LAN cable, and this is just a Cat5 cable. Now, if you ever wondered why every time you see these communications cables, especially CAN bus cables within a vehicle, they always have kind of a twist to them. You can see this one's kind of trying to unravel itself, but you can see the twist there, plus in the Cat5. And what that twist does is help to minimize crosstalk between itself and also when it's laying up against other wires. So we know that we want a positive and negative, and we'll cover more of this when where we're going to connect this to when we get into the vehicle. But what we're going to do is, again, we're going to ignore the green connection. We don't need it. We're going to take a length of this Cat5 cable, and we're going to splice it into the wiring that you see here. And this will give us the length we need to have this in the center console, but then we'll have the length we need to basically take this end and plug it into that star connector on the passenger side. And I get what you're saying. This is probably a little bit of an elaborate setup, but I got to thinking about this and said, you know what, we've got the ability to customize this a little bit. We've definitely got the room for it. We know that we're going to be using the Diablo tuner now, and even more so in the future, especially when we swap the engine out to the 6.4 liter. And it just makes it convenient to kind of give that scan tool at least its own permanent wired interface to be able to do that with. Now, the reason why I'm not using the double bypass you see located in the trunk is that it could just be due to the architecture of the vehicle, but I've actually had some issues accessing the PCM from the double bypass in the trunk. So in order to do this the way Diablo wants this done, so in case we run into any issues and we have to open up a tech support call, I can say that we are in fact plugged in to the star connector behind the passenger glove box and utilizing a connection method that matches their bypass cable. So let me get to work on this. I'm going to do a little bit of soldering. And when I use this Cat5 cable, I'm not just going to pull out two strands or a pair, a twisted pair as you see here. I'm actually just going to leave the entire Cat5 cable intact, because it will actually help support everything by leaving all the, even though we'll have a bunch of unused pairs in this jacket, it just kind of helps support everything and makes everything a bit more rigid, I guess, if you want to call it that. So what we're going to do, we're going to kind of cut this, do a little bit of splicing, a little bit of soldering, a little bit of heat shrinking, and then I'll bring you back. So one moment. And welcome back. Well, a little solder, a little bit of heat shrink, and a little bit of time later, this is what we're ended up with. So you can see that like I said, we were just going to use the entire jacket of Cat5. No sense removing this jacket. We also left the unused conductors in there because it gives us a nice flexible, but also cabling that'll also help support everything rather than just getting out the one pair we needed. So we made our solder connection roughly right about here, right where you see our fingers are, going into the Z Automotive harness before it hits their connector. We've also got an extra piece of insulation in here just to kind of give some rigidity. So we've got everything soldered, the wires are individually heat shrinked, and then we've got an extra support piece in there as well. And then we just kind of taped both their webbing together and the Cat5 cable together. And if we follow that all the way down to the other end, it'll plug into that star connector. You can see that we've got our connection made here. Again, couple layers of heat shrink. Wires are individually soldered, individual heat shrink on those. Some extra support pieces in here, some extra insulation-based support pieces, and then 2 layers of heat shrink on top of that. So that's a nice and secured connection, just like the other one. That's not going to go anywhere anytime too soon. And we'll get that plugged into an available port on the back of our star connector. And of course, we'll get everything tie wrapped once we have decide how we want to lay our cable out. But and we also removed, since it wasn't going to be used, the green connector. So that's out of there. And basically what we're mimicking is the PowerTech bypass harness that Diablo sent for us to use with the Trinity and the unlocked ECU. Because remember, in the instructions, they have us for our application using the white connector. Green one doesn't get used. And really the only now difference between these two setups is we are going to supply power into this harness you see here. It'll come out to this port. And we've got, if you remember, if you've seen the other videos in this series, inside the center console is that upfitter's dongle. And inside that dongle, it has 3 sources of switched 12 volts, meaning if the ignition is accessories or run position, they're hot. But it also has 3 sets of constant battery voltage, meaning it doesn't matter whether the ignition is in accessories, on, or in run, or even on at all. The ignition could be off. It has 3 connectors in there that are hot with battery voltage at all times. So what we're going to do is mimic the fuse that's in the Z Automotive harness. Now, this is meant if you were going to put the bypass in the trunk. Typically, you'd unplug the radio fuse, put the radio fuse in the lower half of this adapter, and then this whole piece would then plug into the distribution box where the radio fuse was at. And you might not be able to see that, but that's a 5-amp fuse. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put an inline fuse holder in on this, and we're going to tap into one of those constant battery sources coming off of that upfitter's dongle in that center console. So we'll show you all that when we get out to the vehicle itself. As far as how long I made the cable, I made the cable as long as the PowerTech cable was, because I knew that this was a suitable length of cable to use, because again, other individuals have used this without an issue. And I also know that this cable was long enough to go from the glove box on the passenger side all the way to the driver's side and plug into the OBD port. So that'll be plenty long enough to go from, again, the passenger side up to the center dash and into the center console. So that's what I based my length measurement off of, in case you're curious. With that being said, I rambled off long enough. When I bring you back, it'll be moments for you, maybe the next day or so for me. We'll be in the vehicle and we'll be getting this routed and plugged in and finish up the wiring on it. So I'll bring you back in one moment. And welcome back. Welcome back to the channel, and most importantly to each good day. Well, it should be moments for you, but it's a couple of days later for me. You can see we're back on the inside of our project vehicle, and we've got a couple of these center plates removed from our aftermarket police console. And what we're doing now is just kind of looking to see how we're going to run our wiring, because in the previous clip you saw that we extended the data lines for our OBD2 connector that we're going to use. It'll be a custom connector that we use with a Trinity programmer. We extended that with a piece of Cat5 cable, and now we're looking for a power and ground. Now what we need is a constant source of 12 volts and a ground. And the reason why we need constant 12 volts is if you haven't dealt with one of these programmers before, a lot of times they have you cycling the ignition on and off several times during the programming process. And we don't want a source of 12 volts that's tied to the ignition, because the minute we turn the ignition off, we lose power to our programmer, which could leave us in a very bad state. So we need constant battery voltage. And if you've seen the previous videos in this series so far, you'll be familiar with this connector here that's in our center console. Now this is identified inside the upfitters kit. And if you've, again, seen the previous videos, you've seen this diagram before. So at the beginning of this pigtail, we've got 6 connectors that are power. The pins 4, 5, and 6 are only on when the ignition is in run or accessories, and we're using 2 of those currently. Remember, we have a source of ignition 12 volts running our USB panel here, our power block here, and we have another one that goes to our ghost power application. But at the ones we're looking for are the first 3 here. So red with a violet tracer, violet with a red tracer, and white with a red tracer. You can see they're fused 20-amp battery positive. Now they're active at all times. As long as the battery is connected and good, then we have power. And I'm using these. I'll show you these a little bit later as well. Once again, you may have seen these in a previous clip, but I'm just using these magnetic-based cable management zip ties, which come in really handy with an all metal enclosure like this. But the connectors we're looking for, the pins we're looking for, are on this pigtail. Going from left to right, looking at the back of this connector, it's the 3 here at the top. So we've got our white with a red tracer right there. It's on pin, that is pin 3. Pin 2, next to it is our violet with a red tracer, and then we got red with a violet tracer. So we need one of those 3. We're going to put a inline fuse on it, and that will become our constant source of 12 volts. So what we're going to do is get back into the end of this pigtail where we have everything wrapped up and secure. We're going to cut this tape off, grab one of those 3 there, and we'll put an inline fuse in it. As well as we're going to start fishing our cabling forward, because the cable that we need to get to, the star block we need to get to, is right behind the glove box, and I'll show you that when we get to it. There's a star connector, or what they call a star connector, back there with several open slots in it. We just need to plug into one of those slots. So we'll run that back here, we'll get power and we'll get ground tapped in, and then we'll be able to do some testing from there. But I'm going to cut some zip ties, cut back on some tape here, get this wiring exposed, and then I'll bring you back. So one moment. And welcome back. So you can see that we've got our pigtail untaped here. We've got our wire identified that we want to use. So we're going to use pin 1, which is a red with a violet tracer. So you may not be able to see the tracer on this wire. A little bit thin, but it'll work. But that's the one we're looking for. That is one of our 3 battery positives, and we do have the pigtail unplugged from the vehicle harness, so these wires are not active currently. So we're just getting everything stripped back and getting it ready. I'm just going to use one of these kind of all-purpose inline fuse holders. Now, it's going to be a bit way overkill for the rating of the current. We're only going to be running about a 5 amp fuse in here. So the problem is, when you buy these, they're rated and wired for kind of their max capacity, which is why this wire is so much thicker. And like I said, it'll be a little bit overkill for what we're looking for, but it'll get the job done. So we're just going to get that fuse holder connected to the end of our cable here, and then we'll get everything prepped to start running the actual connector itself when we bring it back. But I just want to get this connection done and taken care of, and just kind of start to re-secure the rest of the wires in this bundle. Now what I may do is I'm going to take the remaining power wires, which should be these 3 right here, because 2 more of these is constant battery voltage and the other one is accessory voltage. I'll probably just peel these off of the main harness and maybe fold them back and tape them separately. That way, if we have to get in here again for another one of these power taps, then we don't have to unwrap the entire harness to do so. But I'm going to get to work on this, get this all connected in, get this joined up, get this sealed, and I'll bring it back when we start to run our cabling. So one moment. And welcome back. Well, we got the power connections made to our pigtail here, as we were kind of talking about earlier. Got an inline fuse holder in with that. Got everything kind of re-tie wrapped and secured. Now, just for full disclosure, we ended up taking those 3 power wires that are left again. 2 are live at all time, one's ignition, and just kind of pulled those off and taped them off to the side. So if we have to get to them later for a future project, they're a little bit easier to get to. And don't worry, we got a little bit more securing to do on this harness. We're going to tape it back up a little bit more once we finally get everything set. But we're just in the process of running the cable that you saw us do in the previous clip when we extended the wiring on this dongle. So we've got it through our center console, kind of worked our way around. And at least on this particular model and year charger, this little felt panel that's below the glove box is just held on by 3 Christmas tree clips that you see here. The sides of it and just kind of push and set in place, and it's secured in the front by these 3. So once you get these 3 Christmas tree clips off, you can just kind of pull this whole felt panel down. And what we are looking for, and you're going to have to forgive the camera angle, because I've got to get you twisted up here a little bit in order to see this. So you can see that we've got, now that's the other end of our cable that we have to plug into that star connector. Let me see if I can get you some light and get you up in here to see this. And there it is right there. So you can kind of see that star connector with all those other bus connections made on it. And what we're going to do is just grab one of the unused slots in that connector to plug our connector into. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and take care of next. So I'm just going to get this plugged in, finish getting this wiring buttoned up and secured so it doesn't vibrate or go anywhere it shouldn't, and then I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. Well, just a few moments later, I should say, well, more than a few moments, but a few minutes later for me, went ahead and got our positive connection made in here just to a spare bolt. And this bolt bolts in what is actually a laptop mount holder. But remember, this entire metal casing is grounded. If you watch one of the previous videos, you'll see where we did that. And it also has 4 bolts that go into the frame as well. So it's pretty well grounded to the frame at this point. Completed our other half of our positive connection, go into our fuse and put our fuse in. So we're running a 5 amp fuse up to here, which is the same size fuse that Z Automotive sent with their double bypass kit, which is why we're using it here. So right now what we have is we've got our data connection made to our star port that we showed you earlier underneath the glove box. So right now what we have is we have this mimicking the same connections, power and ground, as well as CAN high and CAN low, that the original bypass cable that Diablo sent us. Now we've also added a battery charger in power supply mode. It's hooked up to the battery now, keeping our voltage nice and consistent through this process, because we definitely do not want any voltage dips, since we're going to be in the process of backing up the PCM and making some changes to the PCM here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pause you just so I can get the tripod resituated. This is about the best view I could get. It's just sitting in here for the time being. I tried taking the suction cup and sticking it to the radio. Just their mount is angled to be more like you're sticking it to a windshield, so it was hard for me to get a decent view on it, but I think this will get done what we need to get done. So I'm going to pause you, get the tripod repositioned, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see that we got you zoomed in on the Trinity tuner at this point. We did finish up the wiring. We also finished up the electrical. So we have our ground and power obviously applied, because we can see the tool is powered up at this point. We also have a battery charger in power supply mode hooked up to the battery, keeping our voltage nice and consistent, because we are in the midst of programming here. Now, we did do updates to the Trinity offline, as well as purchase the additional license, because this tuner will allow you to do multiple vehicles, but you have to have a license to each VIN number that you marry it to. So that's been done, and it's also been updated. Now, in full disclosure, I tried this earlier, and I do have the video footage, but I don't think I'm going to include it because initially when hooking up the Trinity to a vehicle, it will marry to the VIN and usually do a backup of the PCM, and that process for one reason or another has failed. Now, with that backup process failing, I don't think it's going to allow us to do this. I did take it after it failed, plug it back into a PC, ran the software updater on there, and there was another update that needed to be done to this after it had seen the vehicle. So that may have been the reason why that it failed during the backup, but it was kind of one of the things I found in the forums that I've seen individuals before where they said that they had to hook it up, they had issues with it. Once it saw the vehicle, they plugged it back in the PC, noticed there was another update, ran that update. So that's kind of the mode we're in. The initial backup failed, but it did see the vehicle, it did marry to it, it did use the extra license that we had without a problem. So since there was that one update, I'm going to try this. Now, it may not let me do this because I don't think the backup completed on this device, but we can try it. So like I said, we're plugged in, we're plugged into our interface here, and we do have a battery tender and power supply mode. So we have the ignition on at this point. And so if we go into tuning, you can see it's going to read the vehicle information. And what we're looking to do is just go into custom tuning. Not custom tuning, sorry, I'm in the wrong spot. We don't have any custom tunes for this vehicle. We want to go into tune vehicle and then modify stock tune. Now we're going to do a customize on it. We're not going to install it quite yet because we want to make some changes. So if we go into customize, I'm just going to go out there and see what we can customize in this vehicle. And we're going to keep this tutorial for now, but what we're looking to do, and the only thing we're looking to do right now, is disable the MDS, as we spoke about before. So if we switch that to off and save that, now if we do install, so ECM modify stock tune, and we're going to turn the 4-cylinder mode off. That is all that we are doing. Now let's see what we get. Well, it's writing it. Got the dash lit up with a bunch of errors right now, but that's to be expected. Okay, wants us to turn the ignition off. We're going to do that now. Touch the screen to continue. Now turn the ignition on, or put it in run mode, but we're not going to start the vehicle. And I'm going to give it plenty of time here to kind of make up its mind, make sure that it does what it needs to do. There's going to be a few more dings here yet. That's a turn signal light out. I don't know if I spoke about that in this video yet or not. And I think that's it. It should be pretty well awake at this point. So we're going to press any key to continue. Just turn the ignition off. Going to give it some time to go to sleep. Now we're going to turn the ignition back on, and once again I'm going to give it plenty of time to kind of get itself right. Be a few more dings. Should be one more. That should be the bulk of it. And we're going to hit any key to continue. Exporting file. So it's taking the last tune we did and it's exporting it. Vehicle has been successfully tuned. Press continue to go back to the main menu. So awesome. So it would appear as though, and let's go ahead and start the vehicle. Actually, let me pause you. I'm going to disconnect the battery tender so it's not still attached while we do this. I will turn the ignition off, however. I'm going to pause you, disconnect the battery, which is the battery charger, which is in power supply mode, and I'll bring you right back. One moment. And welcome back. So went ahead and turned off the battery tender just so it wasn't sitting there, in full mode. So now that the programming's done, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and once again let it power up, let it get itself correct. Let it go, and then we're going to see if we can start it. Because remember, the only thing we did was just turn the MDS off in the stock tune. Let's see what we got. Alright, so far so good. I'm just going to turn on the radio here real quick. Yep, we got it radio. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to show you the dash. You'll notice our check engine light is out because the MDS has been disabled. So it's no longer going and checking that solenoid, which was bad, and coming back with anything, which is awesome. That's exactly what we were looking for. Now, just out of curiosity, I am going to just cycle it through the gears. Okay, we are in reverse. We got our backup camera. We're in drive. Okay, we're able to cycle gears okay. We're going to go back in the park. Perfect. Awesome. So, Let me get you focused back down here on the scan tool. And let me pause you. Let me zoom you in a little bit more and I'll bring you back. What I want to do is we're just going to go ahead and shut it off since we're starting okay. I'm going to bring it back. We're going to power up and then we're going to do a code scan on it and see if it sees that cylinder 1 issue anymore. So one moment. And welcome back. So I got you zoomed in, got you repositioned just a little bit. We're going to go ahead and power up, but we're not going to start the vehicle. And it's going to ding a few more times here. I'm just waiting for that to all kind of get done. There we go. Yep, turn signal light out. I already know what that's about. So let's go in the diagnostics. Let's look for any trouble codes. And no trouble codes. Perfect. So it's no longer doing that check that was concerning us before. So now what we can do is I'm just going to shut the vehicle off. And then we're going to try to see. Now we may have to drive the vehicle a little bit for this to come back. I'm not sure, but we're going to go ahead and try the remote start. Because remember, the remote start would not engage after the first cycle, because once that check engine light set for that cylinder 1 deactivation solenoid, once it causes the manufacturer indicator light, that check engine light to come on, it won't work anymore unless that code's clear. But now that that code is gone, oh, trunk open. Hold on, I gotta go close the trunk. I'll bring you right back, one moment. And welcome back. Well, we got the trunk closed, so let's give it a shot. And I'm trying to keep you out of the sun. I apologize. A little bit of a glare. There you go. You can see it. You can hear it. We're started up there. That's perfect. You can see we got a flashing run light on our ignition. That's just to turn lamp out. That'll be in a future video. And if we hit this button, you'll see our dash will cycle, letting us know that we're taking out a remote start mode. I'll turn the radio off just so we don't get a copyright strike. And again, I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep the sun out of your view here. Turn light out. Yes, I know. Again, that'll be in a future video. And we'll go ahead and shut this down. So awesome. So that verifies that our MDS is disabled. It's no longer doing that check for that cylinder 1 deactivation solenoid because we're no longer setting the check engine. Thus, our remote start continues to work. And as you probably have already seen, we went ahead and disconnected our Diablo tuner at this point because we're done with it. And what we can do, since we do have the magnetic mount on here, is that all we have to do, if we want to push this out of the way, is just kind of push this off to the side, and it'll just kind of hang there as we kind of out of the way. Let me push that a little bit more to the side. There we go. Perfect. So that'll be there waiting for us to use, and then we can just go ahead and put our cover slats back in, because barring needing to do any other adjustments such as not even LED lights, I think the next time we're going to end up be using this tuner will be when we start prepping for more of the 6.4 liter engine swap. For now, we just wanted to disable the MDS to get rid of that check engine light for a system we're not going to use anyway. But obviously, as you can see, it works. And I do apologize. I know we went quite a bit into the weeds on this one with doing the customized install. But rather than running a cable that would run all the way across and kind of plug into the OBD2 port, since all they were using it for was power, I just figured that since we had one of these extra Z Automotive double bypass kits, that we could modify it to act like the bypass cable that Diablo sent us with the unlocked ECU. And since we have this nice lovely metal console in here, have the ability to supply our own power, it just gives us the ability to have a nice little kind of hidden custom dedicated port specifically for doing our tuning, so we don't have to worry about having that cable plugged into the standard OBD2 port underneath the driver's panel, and we also don't have to worry about disconnecting the secure gateway and putting that other bypass cable on either. We've got something dedicated to the purpose. So with that being said, I am going to put these panels back in place and go ahead and finish buttoning things up. I do apologize. Again, I know it was a lot of rambling. I know we went into a lot of weeds, but I just kind of wanted to show what you can do a little bit from the customization standpoint. With that being said, I thank you, and I will bring you back for the next one. Catch you later. Bye.